Monday, May 6th, has issued a high risk of severe weather, and it is confirmed that it is causing damage. Again, it's this little area right here. If you are in this area north of Parkin, Now, hello everybody, my name is Christian and welcome back to Skycast, and it has been about a week since I have uploaded a video. We are back and we are going to be discussing an area of severe weather as we start getting into portions of latter March into early April, where we are highlighting a pretty decent severe weather setup that could bring the potential for significant winds and tornadoes. Let's go ahead and get right into it. And we are starting that risk with today's day one risk, where there has been actually a recent slight risk of severe weather across portions of eastern Texas, western Louisiana, and then all the way up here, a marginal risk that stretches from Nebraska up to Wisconsin. Both of these are actively ongoing. There have been a few tornadoes down here, and the slight risk from little isolated supercells. And then up here in Minnesota, there's been an isolated storm in relatively cold temperatures, right at and even below freezing, which is very interesting to see. Now, here's this storm that we are looking at, and it is just south of Duluth, Minnesota, and this is relatively low end severe thunderstorm warning. It is for quarter-sized hail, accumulating hail, and on top of that, due to those temperatures, you have that bit of freezing rain too, and this will be a threat that pretty much continues across the board. It will pretty much start in this general area from these storms and all the way across portions of even northern Michigan, across southern Canada. That will be a threat for thunderstorms that spawn through this area that will pose a freezing rain threat. You can see all those storms in the southern Canada threat, and then also snow up onto the northern side of that, which is to be expected with those colder temperatures. But what I mentioned earlier is that this is a relatively interesting thunderstorm. And if we're kind of looking at it on the mezanalysis, you can see that right here is where Duluth is. This thunderstorm is right here, and it is between the 32 and the 36 degree range. So it's kind of right there on the border between freezing. Those dew points are fairly low in this area too. So it's really interesting just to see how the storm can continue to sustain itself. Now, as we get into portions of tomorrow on Saturday, we have issued this second slight risk of severe weather. This one is from Enid to Tulsa, Oklahoma, into Wichita, Topeka, Kansas, and into Kansas City and Jefferson City, Missouri. That marginal risk stretches from northern Iowa all the way down into portions of central Texas. And then that general thunderstorm for a broad majority of the United States. So definitely another active day across Saturday. This is going to be kind of the start of our significant weather pattern. Definitely the potential for some large hail with supercells that can form, but that greatest threat is going to be the large to very large hail, especially across Oklahoma and Kansas. And then you're maybe the potential for an isolated tornado or two from these discrete storms. Now, if we are taking a look at things and we go ahead and kind of play this through, you can definitely see that the 500 millibars aren't relatively active, and this is something to keep an eye on. This is not really going to be a huge trough-driven threat. It is trough-driven as usual severe weather events, but it's not as strong as we have seen, especially on the high-risk day that we had a while ago. Not as strong of a trough, but you can see that as we continue to play this through the 29th and into the morning of the 30th, that will be where the greatest threat for storms and tomorrow's slight risk to start. And it's going to be this little thing right here, this 500 millibar trough. And like I said, it doesn't look really too organized for Saturday. I don't expect it to be too great of a severe weather threat. Like I said, potentially some hail. You can see as we get into the early morning towards 06Z, you can see that that does gain a little bit of organization. But overall, it really does not look the greatest for Saturday. Storms will have the greatest threat to form kind of generally along this area. That's where kind of that slight risk is being highlighted. It's not exact, but it's kind of just a general representation. We can continue to play that. You can see that those storms, some of them can remain a bit discreet when they first start off, but it does not look really relatively anything insane with those greens and those yellows. And especially it is very close to this low pressure system. But temperatures are there in the upper 70s. You have dew points within the 50s and 60s. So we may potentially have a storm be able to tap into that environment. and go either isolated, strong, or severe, just depending on. But definitely something to keep an eye out if you are in that area. But the greater threat does appear with Sunday. Now, Sunday has highlighted a pretty large chunk of the eastern United States. We do have this enhanced level 3 out of 5 risk from Indiana down into portions of northern Mississippi and Louisiana. This does include Louisville, Lexington, Kentucky, Logansport, Indiana, Peoria, Illinois, St. Louis, Missouri, all the way down into Pine Bluff, Arkansas, even some areas of Shreveport. And then that slight risk goes out even further from Bay City, Michigan, down into portions of eastern Texas, like Tyler, Texas. Then that marginal risk extends even further from Austin up into Buffalo and Kingston. This is a threat that exceeds more than 100 million people, so definitely a very populous threat. The potential for there to be destructive winds, potentially significant tornadoes, is possible. We have a few things that still needs to be worked out yet, including storm mode, the ability to see if it'll be a QLCS event or if we will have the potential to see some supercells, forcing and things of that nature, how much moisture return we get, how much instability, all that still has to be kind of ironed out. But models have been trending from the long range and the medium range for a potential significant severe weather event. Now, if we do take a look at the 500 millibar winds or the winds that are up in the atmosphere, you can see that as this continues on, we go through portions of Saturday, things don't look relatively interesting. But as we get into portions of Sunday, you can see that jet stream pretty much intensifies, that trough intensifies within about a 70-80 knot trough. And even as this continues into the morning, that trough continues within the like upper 70s, lower 80s. And usually we don't see troughs this week produce severe weather events to a magnitude like this. It does happen, but usually when we get a magnitude of a severe weather event in the upper level area, you got a bigger trough exceeding at least 90 to 100 knots in some areas. But this is a fairly weaker trough. Really cool to see, really cool to see how all that is going to come together. If we do come back and we take a look at the dew points and the temperature, we can kind of watch and see all this kind of unfold. Now back here we do have kind of we do have the trough sitting back here, and as we continue this through, that what that trough's going to do is help moisture evect up more to the northeast, which is fairly unusual but does happen with severe weather events. As we do continue to watch this, you'll be able to see cold air comes out. We'll have all that warm, that moist air pull out of the Gulf of Mexico, and we can see that kind of play through. And then we start seeing a cold front slash dry line kind of form across eastern Oklahoma into portions of Missouri and Iowa. And then that will continue to spark these storms, and eventually that moisture will funnel all the way up, and we will start getting that severe coverage into portions of Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois. So very interesting to see that moisture at its peak will be upper 70s across Memphis, upper 60s, my bad, across Memphis, and then you'll have those 60s across western Kentucky. Then now stretch as those storms continue through across the central and even some portions of eastern Kentucky and areas of that nature. So really moisture is not going to be that much of a issue. If we play through instability too, you can see that we will have plenty of instability, plenty of energy for storms to fire on. You can see, kind of trying to rewind it there, you can see that we do have areas of 2600 joules across southern Louisiana, but a greater area of greater than 1500, which is what helps spark storms. We do have a lot of that storm juice out here across the board as this severe weather system will continue. So definitely enough instability that models are predicting, and this is one of those things that relatively models are disagreeing on. So we will see how these models continue to come together, but lots of moisture, sufficient instability, temperatures within the 70s and the 80s range, and then you've got that forcing from the cool air, the warm air. Really kind of a recipe for a severe weather event. Now that leftover severe weather threat will continue across the coast, anywhere from Massachusetts down into Louisiana. will have that severe threat. And this is fairly rare to get a severe threat. Once again, this includes all of New Jersey, all of Connecticut, Rhode Island, even most of Massachusetts. Very rare to see that, but this slight risk does extend all the way up towards that way. So definitely the potential for a few more tornadoes and damaging winds, potentially some hail as this weakening system continues to move off the coast. Now, that's going to be out of the way, but we have another thing coming, and this one could potentially be even more significant. We do have another 15% risk for Wednesday in April across portions of eastern Texas, all the way up into portions of western Ohio, western central Ohio. This does include Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, a lot of the areas that are going to be impacted by Sunday severe risk, Saturday and Sunday severe risk going to be impacted by this one again. Now, this one has even more uncertainties that do needs to be worked out. But as we continue this through, you can see that there is definitely a very potent trough, what I was talking about earlier. Usually these more significant severe weather events have these greater troughs. And you can see that this one has between a 90 and a 100 knot trough. So that is kind of Paul there. And then even as we get into, you can see that upper level exceeding almost 120 knots in some areas. So that is a more greater trough. If we come back and we look at precipitation, the dew points that are going to be forecasted, we come back, we go through the second. You can see that moisture also advex ahead of that trough. We get moisture. Mess that up for a second. We got moisture all the way up into Indiana, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, again, portions of Kentucky, and then it's going to be a recipe for severe weather all over again. Now I am going to leave the video off here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am a little bit more exhausted today, kind of just tracking everything, so I do note that some points of this video is me rambling on. So I do apologize about this, but stay weatherware, stay safe. You can follow me on X, link in the description at Collins_WX. We will have up-to-date information posted on there every day, practically every hour. Have a great day, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have that tornado plan ready, and have a great one.